The restaurant on Orbital Station 9 was never quiet. It floated high above a silver-blue planet, filled with the noise of alien chatter, clinking metal dishes and the hum of machines that kept everything alive in the vacuum of space. Every table held a different kind of being, some with scales, some with fur, some made of light. And in the middle of it all moved Evan, a young human waiter carrying trays that seemed heavier every shift. Evan wasn't special. He was just another worker trying to earn enough credits to pay for rent in the lower decks. Every day he woke up before sunrise, ironed his uniform until it looked clean enough, and reminded himself to smile, even when customers looked down on him. Humans were still new in this part of the galaxy, and most aliens saw them as service species. Evan had learned to stay quiet, take orders, and never make trouble. But deep down, he still believed that kindness mattered, even in space. The restaurant was a bright, glass-walled dome overlooking the planet below. It was elegant, expensive, and designed for alien nobles who liked to eat while watching shooting stars. That evening, the dinner rush was worse than usual. His manager Vorak, a thick-skinned alien with 4 arms and cold red eyes, barked orders without looking at anyone. "Table 7. Hurry, human," Vorak shouted. "They've been waiting too long." Evan nodded quickly, grabbing a tray filled with steaming blue dishes. As he weaved between the tables, a group of alien guests laughed and flicked crumbs at him. One even said, "Clumsy human. Watch your feet." Evan forced a polite smile and kept walking. He'd learned that reacting only made things worse. When he reached table 7, something unusual caught his eye. Sitting alone near the glass wall was a very old alien woman. Her skin was pale silver and wrinkled like moonlight. She wore a faded robe that looked ancient, and her hand shook as she tried to lift a cup of glowing drink. The cup slipped from her weak fingers and shattered, spilling blue liquid across the table. The other guests at nearby tables turned to stare. Some whispered. One laughed. Vorak's voice thundered from across the room. "Do not touch her, human. Security will clean that up." But Evan couldn't just stand there. The old alien looked frightened and embarrassed, her trembling hand still reaching for the broken cup. Something in her eyes, tired, lonely, and full of quiet sadness, made him move before he could think. He set down his tray, grabbed a cloth, and knelt beside her. "It's all right, ma'am," he said softly, cleaning the liquid from the floor. "Don't worry. No harm done." The alien blinked in surprise. Few people had ever spoken kindly to her. Her eyes, a dull golden color, shimmered faintly as she whispered, "You should not help me, human. They will punish you." Evan smiled. "Let them. You look like you could use a little help." The words were simple, but they carried something warm. For a moment, the busy restaurant seemed to fade. The lights, the noise, the laughter, all of it disappeared as the old alien looked at him with something close to wonder. Then Vorak stormed over, his heavy feet shaking the floor. "What do you think you're doing?" he snarled. "You were told to wait for security." "She needed help," Evan said quietly. "That's all." Vorak's eyes flashed red. "You humans never learn your place. You serve, not decide." Evan stood, wiping his hands. He wanted to argue, but instead he just nodded. "Understood, sir." The old alien spoke again, her voice trembling but clear. "He showed kindness when others showed cruelty." "You should value that," Vorak hissed. "Stay silent, elder. Your kind have no power here." Evan's chest tightened. He wanted to defend her, but he knew that one more word might cost him his job. So he simply helped her back to her seat, placed a fresh cup before her, and whispered, "Enjoy your meal." The old alien gave him a small nod and said softly, "You have done something today that few dare to do. Remember that." He didn't understand what she meant, but the words stayed with him the rest of the night. When the restaurant finally closed, Evan sat alone in the storage room, exhausted. The other workers joked about him. "You'll get fired," man one said. "Helping aliens like that?" "Bad idea," Evan shrugged. "Maybe, but if that was my grandmother, I'd want someone to help her." They laughed again and left him alone in the dim light. Outside, the stars shimmered beyond the glass. As he cleaned the last of the tables, he noticed the old alien's seat was empty, but a small, folded napkin sat where her hands had been. Inside it was a single glowing crystal shard no larger than his thumb. It pulsed softly with golden light. Evan looked around. No one had seen her leave. He slipped the crystal into his pocket, thinking it was just a token of gratitude. But as he walked home through the quiet metallic corridors, he could still feel it. Warm, alive, and waiting. Something inside him whispered that tonight's act of kindness was only the beginning of something far greater. And deep in the cold vacuum of space, far beyond the station, a signal blinked, one that would soon change his life forever. The next morning, the restaurant lights glowed cold and white, sharper than usual. Evan arrived early, still thinking about the old alien woman. He had barely slept. The small golden crystal she left behind sat in his pocket, warm even through the thin fabric. Every time he touched it, a strange calm filled him, like a heartbeat that wasn't his own. As he entered the staff room, whispers stopped. Everyone looked at him, not with friendship but curiosity. Someone muttered, "That's him. The human who helped the elder." Another snickered, "He's done for. Forek's gonna crush him." Evan ignored them and put on his uniform. He didn't regret helping the old alien. He couldn't. It was the right thing to do, and if being kind was a mistake, then it was one he'd make again. But deep down, he knew today would not end well. Moments later, the metallic door hissed open. Vorak, his four-armed manager, filled the doorway. His red eyes gleamed like burning coal. "Evan, my office now." The room went silent. Even the kitchen machines seemed to stop humming. Evan followed quietly. Vorak's office was small but filled with bright holographic displays showing numbers, orders, and staff records. Vorak's voice was low and cold. "You disobeyed direct orders yesterday. You interfered with a guest cleanup protocol. Do you know what that means?" Evan stood straight. "It means I helped someone who needed it." "That's not your decision to make," Vorak growled. "You humans don't understand our rules. You were told not to touch guests during service. You humiliated the restaurant. I have complaints." "Complaints?" Evan frowned. "For helping an old woman?" "She wasn't a woman," Vorak snapped. "She was a Valari elder, a high-status species. You risked offending her entire race by touching her without permission, and now the council may hear of this. You've brought shame to my establishment?" Evan shook his head slowly. She didn't look offended. She looked grateful. Vorak slammed one of his metal hands onto the desk. "Enough, you are dismissed. Effective immediately." For a moment, Evan couldn't move. "You're firing me? You should be thankful I'm not reporting you to station security. Take your human pity somewhere else." The words stung deeper than expected. Evan wanted to argue, to explain, but there was no point. He took off his badge and placed it on the desk. "If helping someone is wrong," he said quietly, "then maybe I don't belong here." Vorak only grunted and turned away. "You never did." Evan walked out slowly, ignoring the stares from the staff. Some smirked, some looked away. Only one cleaner, another human, gave him a small nod of respect. Outside, the long corridors of the station stretched endlessly. Neon lights flickered overhead and air recyclers hummed like tired lungs. Evan's steps echoed softly as he walked toward the lower decks where the air smelled faintly of oil and dust. He didn't have a plan. All he knew was that he couldn't stay. He stopped by a viewing window and looked out at the planet below. Endless blue oceans and swirling white clouds. The stars beyond sparkled like silver dust. Somewhere out there, maybe the old alien woman was watching too. He took out the glowing crystal from his pocket. It pulsed faintly as if alive. "What are you?" he whispered. The light inside it shimmered in rhythm with his voice, almost like it understood. Then something strange happened. The crystal projected a faint image, not clear, but enough to see a shape. A hand, long and delicate, reaching out toward him. A soft voice echoed in his mind. "When the stars burn red, follow the light." Evan froze. He looked around, but no one was there. The corridor was empty. Only the faint hum of the station filled the silence. He closed his hand over the crystal. His heart raced. What had she given him? A message? A warning? He didn't know, but one thing was certain. This wasn't just a gift of thanks. Hours later, Evan sat in his small living pod, surrounded by silence. The flickering light bulb above him made the shadows dance across the walls. His mind replayed the day over and over. The old alien's eyes, Vorak's fury, the strange warmth of the crystal. And then a thought struck him. What if the elder hadn't just been a helpless customer? What if she was something far more powerful? The question echoed in his mind as he lay back on his bunk. Outside his window, the stars glowed quietly, until one of them suddenly flashed red, the same color the crystal had just turned in his hand. Evan sat up sharply. Something was about to happen. Something incredible. The night on Orbital Station 9 was never truly dark. Even when the artificial lights dimmed, the glow from alien billboards and cargo drones painted the corridors in shifting colors: blue, red, and silver. Evan walked alone through one of the narrow service alleys, the kind no tourist ever saw. Pipes hissed, steam rose from vents, and the smell of burnt metal filled the air. He had nowhere to go. His job was gone, his access card deactivated, and his credit balance nearly empty. He'd thought about returning to Earth, but the transport fees cost more than he could afford in a lifetime. All he had left was the glowing crystal the old alien had given him. He took it out again. The crystal floated lightly above his palm, spinning slowly. Its golden light cast soft patterns on the wall, like symbols ancient and strange. Every few seconds it pulsed, almost like a heartbeat. Evan whispered, "What do you want me to do?" The crystal pulsed brighter for a moment and then dimmed again. He sighed and slipped it back into his pocket. "Great, fired, broke, and now talking to a rock." A low voice came from behind him. "It's not a rock, human." Evan turned fast. From the mist at the far end of the alley, a shadow moved. The dim lights revealed the old alien woman, the one from the restaurant. Her robe was different now, glowing faintly with blue lines that pulsed in rhythm with the crystal in Evan's hand. Her eyes shone brighter than before, and her frail frame now carried a quiet power that made the air feel heavy. "You," Evan said, stunned. "I thought I'd never see you again." She smiled gently. "You helped me when others turned away. That is why I'm here." Evan took a step closer. "Why did you give me this crystal?" It's doing strange things." "It's alive," the old alien nodded slowly. "It listens. It watches. It waits for the right heart." He frowned. "The right heart?" She walked closer, her movements slow but steady. "Compassion is rare, even among the stars. Many races build ships and weapons. Few build kindness. You showed it freely, without expecting anything in return." Evan looked confused but curious. "That's just being decent." "Decency," she said softly, "is the first sign of greatness." The words echoed in the narrow alley like a melody. For a moment, Evan felt the strange calm again, the same feeling from when he touched the crystal. "Listen carefully," she said, lowering her voice. "A storm is coming. A great fire will soon sweep through this station. When the stars outside turn red, hold the crystal close. It will guide you to where you must go." Evan blinked. "A fire? What kind of storm?" Before she could answer, the ground shook violently. A dull alarm echoed from far away, a deep throbbing tone that rolled through the metal walls. Then the lights flickered and dimmed to crimson. "What's happening?" Evan shouted over the noise. The old alien looked up at the ceiling. "Too soon," she whispered. "It's starting already. Starting." "What's starting?" Evan demanded, but when he turned back toward her, she was gone. The alley was empty again. Only the mist remained, swirling where she had stood. The only proof she'd been there was the faint shimmer of golden dust floating in the air. Evan's heart pounded. He took the crystal out again. It was glowing brighter than ever before, flashing gold and red in quick bursts. The light grew so strong that it painted the walls in fire-like patterns. Then, as if sensing his fear, it floated upward from his palm and projected a small beam forward, pointing deeper into the maze of corridors. It was showing him the way. He hesitated. "Follow the light," he whispered, remembering her words. He started walking. The deeper he went, the stranger things became. The walls trembled with distant explosions. Sparks flew from the power lines. Sirens screamed across the station, warning of core instability. People ran past him, humans and aliens both, panic in their eyes. But the crystal's light kept guiding him in the opposite direction, away from the escape routes. "Where are you taking me?" he muttered, gripping it tightly. He turned a corner and found himself in a part of the station he'd never seen. An abandoned maintenance level, silent, except for the hum of old machines. The air was thick with dust. Suddenly the crystal flared one last time and projected an image into the air. A map, faint and flickering. It showed the reactor chamber deep below the main decks, The image faded after a few seconds, but the meaning was clear. "That's suicide," Evan said aloud. "The reactor's the most dangerous place on the station right now." The crystal pulsed twice, almost like a reply, a heartbeat saying yes. Evan looked back the way he came. The alarms were getting louder. The ground shook again. Somewhere above, metal screamed as something massive tore apart. He looked at the crystal one more time, its light steady now, warm and trusting. He took a deep breath. "All right. I don't know what's happening, but I'm not going to ignore it." He followed the glowing path that wound deeper into the belly of the space station. And behind him, far in the darkness of the alley, unseen by anyone, the old alien woman watched silently. Her golden eyes reflected the red emergency lights as she whispered to the empty air, "Let the test begin." The fate of thousands now rested in the hands of a single fired human waiter and a mysterious crystal that had chosen him. The station's sirens screamed like living things, echoing through every hallway and shaking the air itself. Red lights flashed across the metallic walls, casting long, flickering shadows that made everything look alive and afraid. The calm, polished restaurant from the night before was now a memory. Orbital Station 9 was turning into chaos. Evan ran through the narrow corridors, following the crystal's pulsing light. It hovered just ahead of him like a small sun, guiding him through service tunnels and locked maintenance doors that somehow opened as he approached. The alarms blared overhead, repeating the same chilling message. "Reactor instability detected. Evacuate immediately. Repeat, evacuate immediately." He could hear the sound of distant explosions like thunder trapped inside metal walls. Panels sparked and fell from the ceiling. The air grew hotter with every step. Somewhere far below, the massive reactor that powered the entire station was tearing itself apart. "Why here?" he gasped. "Why me?" The crystal pulsed in response, brighter this time, almost as if answering him. Evan didn't understand how, but he felt something through it, like a faint whisper in his mind. It wasn't words, not exactly, but emotion, urgency, hope, and trust. He turned another corner and almost collided with a group of panicked workers. One of them, a blue-skinned alien technician, grabbed his arm. "You shouldn't be here, human. The reactor core is going critical." "I know," Evan shouted back. "I'm trying to help." "Help?" The alien stared at him like he was insane. "You'll die before you reach the lower decks." Evan didn't reply. He pulled free and kept moving, ducking under falling pipes as steam hissed around him. The crystal floated faster now, leading him down a maintenance shaft that trembled with each explosion. The air was thick with the scent of burning circuits and ozone. He slid down a ladder, landing hard on a lower platform. The metal beneath his feet was warm, too warm. Through a narrow window, he saw a terrifying sight. The reactor chamber, a massive sphere of blinding blue energy, pulsing erratically like a beating heart gone mad. Energy arcs lashed out, tearing through walls and machinery. Workers in protective suits tried to stabilize the system, shouting orders, but the damage was far beyond control. Evan's breath caught. The whole structure looked ready to explode. The crystal dimmed for a moment, then shone a golden path across the catwalk toward a control terminal. "You want me to go there?" Evan muttered. "That's the worst possible place to be." Still he went. He moved carefully across the shaking bridge, holding the railing as pieces of debris rained down. One beam struck nearby, sending sparks across his jacket. The noise was deafening now, the roar of energy, alarms, and cracking metal merging into one endless scream. When he reached the control terminal, he saw that it was locked with an alien interface. Dozens of glowing symbols shifted too fast to read. "I can't use this," he said, frustration building in his chest. But the crystal floated forward on its own, touching the terminal gently. The alien symbols froze, then rearranged into a simple message written in English. "Insert the core key." "What core key?" Evan asked. The crystal pulsed 3 times and then melted, its light stretching, twisting until it reshaped itself into a glowing shard, perfectly shaped to fit the slot in front of him. Evan stared in disbelief. You're the key?" The alarms grew louder and the platform began to crack. He didn't have time to think. He grabbed the shard with both hands. It felt warm, almost alive, and pushed it into the control slot. For a moment, nothing happened. Then everything exploded in light. The reactor's wild blue glow shifted to gold, and the violent energy arcs froze midair. The tremors stopped. The alarms cut off with a single sharp beep. Evan shielded his eyes as the light filled the entire chamber surrounding him. He could hear voices, hundreds, maybe thousands, whispering through the light. They weren't human or alien. They sounded ancient. Then slowly the reactor's glow faded to a soft hum. The damage began to heal itself. Metal panels sealing, broken circuits reconnecting. The entire space station seemed to take a deep breath of relief. Evan stood trembling, the golden shard now dark and cool in his hands. The control terminal flashed a new message. System stabilized. Catastrophic failure prevented. He stared at it in shock. I did that. Footsteps echoed behind him. He turned and froze. Standing at the far end of the chamber was the old alien woman, her eyes glowing with gentle light. But she didn't look frail anymore. The golden aura around her shimmered like fire, and her robes moved as though touched by invisible wind. You did more than stop a reactor, she said softly. You proved that compassion can guide where logic fails. Evan took a step forward. Who are you? Really? She smiled. You will know soon. The light has chosen its bearer. Before he could ask more, her form began to dissolve, fading into particles of gold that rose toward the ceiling and disappeared. Evan stood there, surrounded by silence and the faint hum of the reactor. The crystal shard in his hand flickered once, as if giving him a final heartbeat of thanks. Somewhere deep in the station, the systems restarted. Lights turned white again. Alarms went silent. Life returned, but Evan knew everything had changed. He had saved a space station full of lives, and he had no idea how or why he was the one chosen to do it. For a long moment, there was only silence. The kind of silence that comes after something impossible has happened. Evan stood in the reactor chamber, breathing hard, his hands still trembling from what he had just done. The golden shard in his grip was cool now, its light gone, but he could still feel its pulse faint and steady, like the echo of a living heart. He looked around the chamber. The chaos was gone. The reactor, once wild and unstable, now glowed softly with a golden hue. The workers who had fled moments ago slowly returned, their eyes wide with disbelief. The hum of the machines had changed. It wasn't the sharp buzz of danger anymore. It was calm, deep, almost musical. Evan barely understood what had just happened. 1 minute he was a fired waiter. The next he had stopped a reactor meltdown that could have destroyed half the station. He wasn't an engineer, not a soldier. He didn't even know what half the controls meant. Yet somehow the crystal had known what to do. A soft chime broke the silence. The main console flickered to life again, displaying a message in glowing golden letters. Human signature detected. Synchronization complete, Evan frowned. Synchronization? With what? As if answering, the golden shard in his hand rose slowly into the air and floated above his palm. It began to shine again, brighter than before. But this time the light wasn't blinding. It was warm, wrapping around him like sunlight. He felt something then. Images, not seen but felt, flashed through his mind. Galaxies swirling, alien cities bathed in light, and a vast council of beings watching from a place beyond time. Voices whispered softly, too distant to understand yet full of purpose. Then the warmth focused into his chest. For a moment he felt the shard connect with him, not physically but something deeper, a bond. The crystal spoke, not in words but in thoughts. You are chosen, Evan. The light responds to kindness. The heart that helped without seeking reward carries power beyond reason. Evan staggered back, his mind spinning. Chosen? I don't understand. I'm nobody. I just helped someone. The light pulsed gently as if smiling. That is exactly why. Suddenly a sharp sound cut through the calm, heavy boots clanging against the metal floor. A squad of armored station guards stormed in, weapons raised. Their leader, a tall alien with silver plating along his skin, pointed straight at Evan. There, he barked. That's the human. Detain him. Evan raised his hand, still holding the crystal. Wait, I just stopped the meltdown. The alien guard sneered. You? A human waiter stopped a reactor collapse. Lies, you tampered with restricted tech. You're under arrest for sabotage. Before Evan could argue, one of the guards fired a containment beam. It struck the floor near his feet, leaving a smoking mark. The crystal's light flared instantly, golden energy forming a barrier around him. The blast dissolved against it like water hitting glass. The guards froze. Evan looked down at himself. The crystal hovered before him, glowing fiercely, protecting him. It pulsed once and a wave of energy rippled outward, knocking the guards off their feet without harming them. What? What are you doing? Evan whispered. The crystal's voice was calm inside his head. Defending you. You carry the key. The unworthy will not harm you. The leader struggled to his feet. What is that thing? He shouted. Deactivate it! But it was too late. The chamber lights dimmed as the golden energy expanded, forming a sphere around Evan. For a brief second, everything went silent again. Then the light burst outward, sweeping through the corridors like a soft wave. Every damaged system flickered back to life. Broken screens repaired. Sealed doors reopened. Across the entire station, people stopped running and stared in awe as the emergency red lights turned to a calm golden glow. It was as if the crystal was healing the entire station. When the glow finally faded, Evan stood in the middle of the now stabilized reactor room. The guards were stunned but unharmed. One of them, trembling, whispered, That wasn't human technology. Evan lowered his hand slowly. The crystal dimmed and floated back into his palm, now just a faint ember of light. I didn't do it, he said softly. It did. The leader looked at him for a long moment, then lowered his weapon. Whatever you did, you just saved everyone on this station. Evan didn't know what to say. He felt the weight of the crystal in his palm, heavier now, like it carried not just light but responsibility. He looked up at the vast reactor core glowing gold and whispered to himself, Why me? The voice in his head returned, softer this time, almost tender, because even among a million stars, true kindness shines brightest. Evan stood quietly, the golden light reflecting in his eyes. He didn't know what came next, but he knew his life would never return to normal. Somewhere beyond the stars, something or someone had chosen him, and the crystal, still warm in his hand, pulsed again, as if whispering that this was only the beginning. The reactor chamber was silent now. The golden light had faded into a calm hum, and the air smelled faintly of ozone and metal. Evan stood there, his uniform torn, his face smeared with sweat and dust. The once chaotic energy of the space station now felt alive in a different way. Softer. A quiet heartbeat pulsed through the walls, and somehow, he knew the station was safe because of him and the crystal. He looked down at it, the shard glowing faintly in his palm, as if resting after saving millions. Its warmth was familiar now, almost comforting. But questions still burned in his mind. Before he could think further, the heavy doors of the chamber slid open. A group of high-ranking officials entered, figures in long robes and polished armor, their faces unreadable. At the center of them was a tall alien woman whose golden eyes matched the color of the crystal. It was her, the same frail old woman he had helped in the restaurant. But she no longer looked old. Her skin shimmered with silver light. Her robe glowed with intricate symbols, and her presence filled the room with quiet power. The guards around her bowed deeply, afraid to meet her eyes. Evan froze. You, he whispered. I don't understand. Who are you? She smiled softly. I am Alaris, matriarch of the Valari Council. What you saw before was only a fragment of what I am. Evan stepped back, his heart racing. You're one of the council, but why pretend to be an old customer? Why me? Her golden eyes met his, calm and ancient. Because compassion cannot be measured by wealth, strength, or status. It must be seen. You were tested, human, and you passed. Evan blinked, trying to process her words. Tested? You mean all of this was some kind of experiment? Alaris shook her head gently. Not an experiment. A revelation. For centuries, the Valari and many other species have judged humans as impulsive, selfish, and unfit for higher alliances. But I believed there was something within your kind worth saving. Something pure. She stepped closer, her voice softening. When you helped me that night, you did so without expecting anything in return. No audience, no reward, just simple kindness. That single act awakened the crystal. Evan looked down at it. You mean this thing was waiting for someone like me? Yes, Alaris said. It is an echo core, a relic from an age before time. It responds only to hearts untainted by greed or fear. The moment you touched it, it chose you. Evan felt his throat tighten. I didn't do anything special. Anyone would have helped, she smiled sadly. No, Evan, many saw, but only you acted. That is what makes all the difference. The other council members behind her watched silently. One of them, a tall alien with crystalline skin, spoke with deep reverence. The Echo Core hasn't responded in 10,000 cycles. And it chose a human, Alaris nodded. And through that human, an entire station was saved. Do you see now why the light tests us in quiet ways? Evan didn't know what to say. His chest felt heavy with disbelief. He had been a waiter, just a man serving food and trying to survive. Yet somehow he'd been part of something far greater. I don't think I can handle this, he said quietly. I'm just me. Ilaris stepped closer until she stood right before him. That humility is why it chose you. Greatness does not come from knowing you're worthy. It comes from doubting it and acting anyway. Her hand touched his shoulder, and for an instant golden light surrounded them both. Evan saw flashes, visions of distant worlds, dying stars reignited by light, alien children laughing under twin suns. And among them, humans walking beside other species, no longer servants but equals. The vision faded. Ilaris looked into his eyes. You are now the keeper of the light, Evan. The core's bond cannot be broken. It will call you again when the galaxy needs your heart. Evan took a shaky breath. What am I supposed to do with it? Live, she said simply. Live with compassion. Protect life where you can. The core will guide you when it's time. The guards bowed deeply as Ilaris and the council began to leave. But before she stepped through the door, she turned back to him. One more thing, she said. Vorak, your former employer, has been informed of his mistake. He will no longer command others. Justice, too, follows compassion. Evan blinked in shock. You knew about that? Ilaris smiled. I know everything that kindness touches. With that, she and the council vanished in a shimmer of golden light, leaving Evan alone once again in the glowing reactor room. He looked down at the crystal. It pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. A small smile formed on his face. Keeper of the light, he whispered. Guess that's one job I won't get fired from. Above him, the stars outside the viewport shone brighter than before, and somewhere in the vastness of space, a signal pulsed quietly, an ancient light recognizing a new guardian of hope. The days after the reactor crisis felt unreal, like waking from a dream that still shimmered in the air. The once chaotic space station was now peaceful, bathed in a soft golden hue that lingered around its halls as if the light itself remembered what had happened. People, human and alien alike, whispered stories of the waiter who stopped the collapse, though most believed it to be a myth. Evan didn't correct them. He walked the same corridors that once echoed with orders and insults, but now heads bowed respectfully when he passed. Where there had been mockery, there was quiet awe. The same guards who once tried to arrest him now saluted. It didn't feel like pride, it felt like a weight. He still kept the echo core with him, its golden light pulsing gently beneath his shirt like a heartbeat. It no longer spoke often, but sometimes when he closed his eyes, he could hear faint whispers, soft voices that carried comfort, as though the universe itself was breathing beside him. One morning, as the artificial sunrise spread across the dome, Evan received a summons. The message was short. By decree of the Galactic Council, you are requested to appear at the Hall of Worlds. His hands trembled as he read it. The Hall of Worlds was not a place for ordinary people. It was where alliances were forged, treaties signed, and decisions that shaped galaxies were made. He took the nearest shuttle, still wearing his old uniform jacket, a reminder of where he came from. As the shuttle glided through the void, he gazed out the window. Stars drifted past like slow-moving fireflies. He could see the reflection of his own face in the glass, tired, uncertain, but no longer afraid. When the shuttle docked, he stepped out into a vast chamber made of glass and light. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds filled the seats that spiraled upward in a grand circle. The air shimmered with colors from every spectrum of existence. Floating above the center was the Galactic Council, and among them stood Ilaris, radiant as ever. When she saw him, she smiled. Evan, child of Earth, her voice rang out, amplified by the chamber's energy. You were once a waiter serving food in silence. Today you have served the galaxy. The crowd murmured, voices mixing into a low hum of awe. Evan stepped forward, uncertain. I didn't mean to save anyone, he said softly. I just did what felt right, Ilaris nodded. And that is why you succeeded where others would have failed. She raised her hand, and from the air above, the golden light of the echo core separated into hundreds of smaller sparks that floated around the room, illuminating the faces of every being present. This human, she continued, did not act from duty, or gain, or fear. He acted from empathy, the rarest strength in the universe. And for that, The Echo Core has awakened once more. Its choice is final. Evan felt a warmth spread across his chest as the light returned to him, wrapping around his shoulders like a cloak made of starlight. Evan, Elara said, by the will of the Council and the voice of the Core, you are granted the title of Guardian of Unity, ambassador between humankind and the Valari. The chamber erupted in light. Beings of every kind, some with wings, some made of crystal, others no larger than sparks, bowed their heads toward him. Evan stood frozen, overwhelmed. Guardian? He whispered. But I'm not a leader. I don't even know how to be one, Elara smiled. You already are. Leadership is not about power. It is about heart. And yours has reached farther than any fleet. She extended her hand, and from thin air appeared a symbol of light, an insignia shaped like a star embraced by two hands. She pinned it gently to his chest. This will open any door on any world where compassion is needed. Evan looked at it, feeling both humbled and small. I never asked for this. And that, she said softly, is why you deserve it. The council began to chant softly, a melody that wasn't words but emotion. The golden light pulsed in rhythm, filling the chamber with a harmony that seemed to stretch across space itself. Evan felt it sink deep into his soul like a promise. When it ended, Elara stepped close and whispered so only he could hear. The universe will remember your kindness long after stars burn out. Never doubt the power of a single good act. As he left the chamber, the crowd parted silently. Some reached out to touch his sleeve, others simply smiled. He felt none of the arrogance of honor, only a quiet peace, the kind that came from knowing he had done something right. Back aboard the shuttle, he looked once more through the glass at the endless sea of stars. The Echo Core glowed faintly, its voice soft in his mind. Where compassion walks, light follows, Evan smiled. Then I guess we've got a lot of walking to do. The shuttle drifted away from the Hall of Worlds, disappearing into the infinite expanse. Behind him, the stars shimmered with a golden glow, as if the universe itself bowed in gratitude. And somewhere deep in that starlit silence, the once ordinary waiter, now guardian of unity, finally understood his true reward. Not power, not fame, not fortune, but the knowledge that even the smallest kindness could change the fate of galaxies.